Before we dive in, I'm going to show you two quick 20-second edits, one from the V1 and one from the R50V. No labels, no bias, just watch and decide which one looks best to you. You might be surprised how close they really are. If you like the first edit, that was the Canon R50V, and the second, that was the V1. Now, in this video, I'm going to be putting these two cameras head to head, covering video quality, autofocus, stabilization, photo quality, low light, and everything else you're going to need to know to pick what camera is best for you. Chapters are going to be down below if you want to skip around, but I think you're going to enjoy this one. Let's get into it. Both of these cameras are incredibly small and pack way more punch than their size suggests. If you want the smallest, most compact option, it's going to be tough to beat the V1, but one of my favorite combos as of late is actually the R50V paired with the RF28 f2.8 pancake lens. This setup is surprisingly compact and actually rivals the size of the V1. When it comes to handling, the R50V is going to take the win. The grip is deeper, it feels better in the hand, and almost every button on the camera can be reassigned to suit your workflow. On the V1, you only get two reassignable buttons on the back. The R50V also has a vertical mounting option built into the grip. This is great if you do vertical content, and the menu actually changes depending on how you hold the camera. This all feels very seamless. Now, going back to my review of the V1, one of my biggest complaints with that camera was the tripod screw placement. It blocks the battery and memory card door, which meant you had to remove it every time you wanted to swap batteries or pull a card. And the R50V fixes this problem with an offset design. And now even with the plate installed, you have plenty of room to access the door. This is such a small thing, but makes a huge difference. When it comes to screens, you can clearly see the resolution bump on the R50V compared to the V1. It's just easier to see and compose shots. And with that said, I still wish both of these cameras had an EVF. Maybe that's for a Mark II version. Alright, so video quality. The first thing you notice when comparing footage is the color. I set both cams to the exact same color space, C-Log3, Cine Gamut. They also had the exact same white balance, and all of the footage was shot at the exact same time. And yet, the V1 had a noticeable green cast, and then the R50V footage, on the other hand, actually leaned slightly magenta. But I think for myself, the overall color felt so much more natural and pleasing out of the R50V compared to the V1. Both cameras produce sharp oversampled 4K footage, but the R50V's footage has this mix of detail and softness that makes it feel more cinematic. The V1, on the other hand, can feel a bit more like a digital compact camera, and when I would review the footage, I constantly found myself gravitating towards the R50V footage because it just kind of had some of this special sauce. For 4K 60, both cameras apply a crop, but they're equally sharp. Both do 1080p at 120 frames, and while this mode is a bit soft for both, it still produces very usable footage. Now, the R50V takes this another step and not only lets you record true 120p with audio, but it also has a dedicated SNF, or slow and fast mode, that gives you pre-interpolated slow motion footage, and this is something that you normally only see in Canon cinema cameras. I shot both cameras in some pretty high contrast conditions here in Pittsburgh, and both held up really well. The biggest difference that jumped out to me was just how much cleaner the shadows were on the R50V when compared to the V1. Raising the shadows on the V1 reveals some pretty aggressive noise, as well as a color shift, and doing the same to the R50V, and you're left with an image that is going to require so much less work in post to get to a usable spot. Color science is another win for the R50V. Skin tones and just overall color rendering, it feels so much more cinematic and natural. You can tell Canon's cinema team had their fingerprints on this camera, from the menus to the footage itself. It just feels like a more complete video solution. Autofocus is pretty much identical between the two. Both use Canon's dual pixel AF2 system, both lock onto your face and the eyes. They both transition smoothly from foreground to background. Even when you turn around, they're gonna track the back of your head. I never really felt like I was fighting the AF on either of these cameras, which is something that you expect from a camera released in 2025. I will say the R50V does have a slightly more advanced AF menu. You can tweak the AF sensitivity, the AF speed, and then on the V1, all you can do is some basic speed adjustments. The R50V also has subject tracking for vehicles and even lets you register people for priority tracking. And this is a feature that I only really saw on Canon's flagship cameras until the R50V. Stabilization was a bit more of a mixed bag. The V1 has both optical and digital IS, and because the lens and body are built as a single unit, the stabilization feels extremely natural. The R50V, on the other hand, only offers digital IS unless you pair it with a stabilized RF lens, but in the real world, both cameras handled micro jitters just fine. For walking shots, I thought the V1 had a slight edge, but then when it came to vlogging, I actually felt that the R50V produced a more natural, less kind of floaty movement, and so here's a clip of that to check out. Now here we have the Canon R50V and the Canon V1 set up in sort of like a vlog mode. Digital IS is enabled, as well as the built-in mics. So if you were to vlog with these cameras, this is what it would look like and what it would sound like. Now these are not just video cameras, but they're also very capable stills cameras. The V1 feels more like the photo first camera. Just look at the top dial. You get all the classic shooting modes right there at your fingertips, whereas the R50V hides a lot of these in the menu, and the top dial is very video focused. When it comes to the shutter, the R50V uses an electronic first shutter with mechanical curtain, whereas the V1 uses a true mechanical leaf shutter. Surprisingly, even with these differences, the image quality is pretty much identical. Noise performance and dynamic range are close. I still prefer the color straight out of the R50V. The green cast is still very present in the V1's photos. I also noticed that the V1 does some aggressive HDR processing. This is with all of the internal processing turned off and shooting in RAW. It kind of looks like the camera is lifting the shadows to make it appear to have more dynamic range, sort of like what an iPhone would do. It's not bad, it's just different. Neither camera is a low light monster. If I had to choose one, it would be the R50V. The V1's smaller sensor really starts to struggle once the sun goes down. I would prefer not to shoot with either of these in a dimly lit room, but the R50V is definitely the better of the two. Audio-wise, both cameras have decent enough built-in mics for scratch, but you're going to want an external mic to do anything serious. The R50V does do 24-bit 4-channel recording, which is cool, but probably not something most people are going to use. And yes, both cameras have mic inputs, and both cameras have headphone jacks for monitoring and for playback. Battery life, this is where the R50V surprised me. Both use Canon's smaller LPE17 batteries, but the R50V outlasted the V1 by nearly an hour in my testing. I got around 2 hours from the V1 before the red battery light started to flash, but the R50V, I was getting closer to 3 hours under the exact same conditions. And something odd I also noticed was when the V1 would start flashing, I could take the battery from that camera, put it in the R50V, and shoot for another hour before it started to flash itself. And then on the flip side, if I took a half-drained battery from the R50V and put it in the V1, it immediately started to flash. This might have something to do with the fan in the V1 or just power draw. Regardless, the R50V was consistently the best when it came to battery life. USB-C charging is another win for the R50V. It supports USB-C power delivery up to 65 watts, while the V1 can only work with your basic 5-volt wall charger. Lens selection, or lack thereof, is probably the biggest difference between these two. The V1 is simple. You get a fixed lens with a 16 to 50mm zoom range. There's no extra gear, no decisions. You just grab the camera, you go out and you shoot. The R50V, well, this camera gives you access to Canon's entire RF lens lineup, and being an APS-C camera, you also get the benefit of all the third-party lenses coming out from Sigma and Tamron. If you want gear that grows with you, the R50V is the obvious choice, but if you want simplicity, the V1 is a one-stop solution. Codec options are another big difference. On the V1, you have the usual H.264 and H.265 with a max bitrate around 120 megabits per second, and this works just fine for most creators. With the R50V, you get support for more pro-level codecs like XF-AVCS and XF-HEVCS, as well as H.264 and both 420 8-bit and the full 422 10-bit, all the way up to 250 megabits per second. This means you're getting files that hold up so much better under heavy editing, plus they're easier to work with, and Canon's XF codecs are optimized for most NLEs, so you can cut, grade, and export without running into any slowdowns. At $699, the R50V feels like a steal, especially if you already own RF lenses. It's cheaper, it's more flexible, it's more future-proof, and you can build it out as you go. The V1, on the other hand, at $979 is still a fantastic all-in-one camera, but it is harder to justify that price when you can grab an R50V and an RF 28mm for roughly the same price. That said, the V1's simplicity and built-in lens means you're ready to shoot out of the box. You don't need any extra gear, you have a reliable all-in-one camera package that you can just grab and go. If you're a travel vlogger, content creator, or just somebody who wants to capture life without really thinking about gear, the V1 is perfect. It's compact, discreet, and ready to shoot. It's ideal for airports, cities, and just family moments. But if you're a filmmaker, a hybrid shooter, or somebody who already owns RF lenses, the R50V is in another league. The image quality, lens flexibility, and customization makes it feel like a mini cinema camera that you can grow with. And for me, the R50V is going to be the one that stays in my bag. It integrates perfectly with my R6 as a B cam, it rigs easily, and the footage that comes from it just has that special look. The V1 is great, and if I take any trips where I need minimal gear, it's going to be the camera I bring, but for my day-to-day, the R50V checks more boxes. So which one fits your workflow best, the V1 or the R50V? Drop your pick in the comments and let me know which surprised you the most from the side-by-side comparison. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another one.